limestone formations with caves that served as refuges for monks and bandits. This is Khao Ok Talu in Patalung, an example of one of these limestone formations. Historically and culturally, it's a very old part of Thailand. Some of the earliest Buddhist and Brahmanic statuary and material remains have been discovered in this area and across the peninsula on the west coast in Trang, Gabi, and Tekur Ba. In this cave up on the upper part of the Ok Talu was found prapin, very old prapin. I think more than one. From the first millennium, Nakhon Si Thammarat was a center of trade, and at various times and through the 19th century, it was an independent state. It was a Patet Saran, a proxy for the extension of Bangkok's power into the Deep South. With its distinctive geological, commercial, and political history, this part of Thailand has its own story to tell. But it can also tell us something about the rest of the country. What I'm trying to do is write not just a regional or provincial history, but a way of looking at this regional history that can illuminate religion, power, and the self elsewhere. By one account, Kun Pan was born in 1898 and died in 2006. His birth date is very vague, and it's almost unbelievable that somebody could live to be 108 years old. But he kept the date secret because he believed that his enemies would not be able to cast a spell on him. If he really was born in 1898, he lived for 108 years, Roy Beck, a magic number, an auspicious number in Thai Buddhist culture. The older he grew, the larger the legends became. He became famous for the ruthless and lethal way he dealt with bandits and criminals. Over his police career from the 1920s to the 1950s, he killed a lot of bad guys, about 62, either by himself or as head of a team of police hunting down criminals and bandits. When he was growing up in Nakhon Si Thammarat, he was not a particularly strong boy, and he was very short. This picture is very interesting. In the middle there, you can see that he's standing on a little platform, so he can be as tall as the other. He can be taller than the policeman on either side of him. He's a very, very small man. He was very ill when he was a child, which weakened him, I think, for the rest of his life. But he built up his physique by becoming a boxer. And he was inducted into the Sayasat knowledge of Wat Khao O in Patalung, which also gave him some special powers. This Sayasat knowledge was his personal belief, but it was also a psychological weapon that he used to hunt down and capture bad guys. One of the first biographical studies of Kun Pan, and perhaps the only academic work to my knowledge, was written by a historian by the name of Wirat Sangpet, who, the last time I met him, was a primary school teacher in Songkhla. And it's called Pumbanya Gan Prap Pram Kong Kun Tamrutri Kun Pantarak Rajade. Wirat's research was supported by the Sagawa, which is the sponsor of this conference. In the legends about Kun Pan, he became known as a Natleng Mungprao. He was very tough, very good at catching bandits. On one of his hands was an executioner's tattoo that warned others that his hands could be used to kill. If he hit someone with his fist, that person would go crazy. If he shot someone, death was certain. Natleng refers to the fact that he was really good at his job at Prao, if necessary, by using lethal force. His active years began in about 1930 and continued through the 1950s. Before World War II, many parts of Thailand had very low population density and were very lightly governed. In the Mid-South, the land suitable for agriculture was still being settled as late as the 1950s, and large gangs, or chumjon, roamed at will in the ungoverned spaces. After reading a lot about the Nakleng Mungprap, I conclude that Kun Pan himself was a Nakleng. Prap, or Prap Pram, is the word I'm interested in here. Nowadays, there's a Gong Prap in the police department, the Department of Crime Suppression. A Thai policeman recently told me that Bong Pram is also a term used to mean preventing or restricting crime, such as prostitution. According to the police manuals, police work involves 3 core duties: Silpsuan, Sopsuan, and Brapram. It also involves Sasom, I think. There's some problems in Bangkok at the moment about Sasom. Yeah. Brapram means to suppress or to subdue, to suppress criminality and restore order. It has to do with catching lawbreakers or insurgents, and was a term used in the war against the communists in the 1960s through the early 1980s. Brap Communit. Putting down rebellion, restoring order. In police work, it may be perhaps often necessary to use force to achieve this end. It's a very old word. It occurs in the Kokmaidra Sandung from the early 19th century. In the rhetoric of the military's contribution to nation building and national unification, Brap refers to the restoration of the kingdom's integrity after the fall of Ayutthaya. King Taksin and General Chakri suppressed rebellions and defeated the foreigners, such as the Khmer, to restore sovereignty. Brap Chumnum, Brap Khmer. Brap has to do with defeating criminals. It is the hard edge of policing, not the soft edge. Reforms in the Fifth Reign, the functions of the military and the police were not bureaucratically distinct, and armies suppressed rebellions in the countryside. In General Jalpriya Surasakmontri's account of his suppression of the Haw in the 1870s, his army Brap Bram the Haw. He suppressed the Haw. In the 1920s and 30s, the responsibilities of police were not divided between Salpsuan, Silpsuan, and Brap Bram. One person could do all of those things, and that's what Kunpan did. He could do both at the same time. So, Brap Bram is the first key word, the first blah blah word. Late in his life, when he was almost 90 years old, Kunpan's career as a policeman was pretty much finished, and he became famous for something else. He was a key figure in the creation of the Jatukam amulet, Jatukam Ramte. In fact, most people know about Jatukam Ramte. They don't know very much about Kunpan. He was consulted about its design and presided at several of the early rituals. He was a prominent local dignitary in the Khonsi Tamarat and renowned for his knowledge of Sayasa. Amulets, Buddhist amulets and other kinds of charms and talismans are attractive because of their special properties for warding off danger and for attracting wealth. Policemen like to wear amulets so they don't get shot. This is a picture of Jia Pian, who wore many amulets. Unfortunately, they didn't protect him, and he lost his life in the line of duty in early 2010, at the beginning of the demonstrations of the red shirts in Bangkok in 2010. The explanation for his death is that the Buddhist amulets got into a quarrel, Palokan, because they didn't know who had responsibility for protecting him. The rivalry, the quarrel caused confusion and left him vulnerable to bullets. Amulets have the power to confer personal qualities, such as honesty, self-reliance, dependability. And amulets are what investors call an asset class. Some amulets are blue-chip investments. Their value will fluctuate very little over time. Other amulets experience high volatility. They are high risk, high return. You can make a lot of money if you buy cheap, and you can lose a fortune if you mistime your purchase. When people talk about Puttapanit, they are referring to the commodification of Buddhism, the busy activity of buying and selling amulets or raising money for temple construction. Puttapanit also refers to investment in amulets as an asset class. The Jatukam amulet was a high-risk amulet. At the height of the Jatukam bubble, or Jatukam fever, which coincided with the governments of Police Lieutenant Colonel Thaksin Shinawat, the amulet was worth a great deal. But at the end of Thaksin's time, in 2006, which coincided with the death of Kunpan, the Jatukam bubble burst. People who had invested a lot of money, or who had borrowed money to buy the amulet, expecting it to increase in value, saw the amulet's value suddenly drop. The sale of the Jatukam was used to raise funds for schools, hospitals, and monastery buildings, Puttapanit, such as at Wat Kamsa in Gabi. I don't know what the airplane has to do with this at all. Very, very big jatukam. And they were selling them to raise funds for a building that they were building in Krabi. Apart from the jatukam in amulet form, images of the jatukam larger in size are also found in many places, particularly in the south. The jatukam is not an image of the Buddha, so it can be used as interior decoration. In a restaurant, perhaps. The hotel I stay in the Nakhon Si Thammarat, the Twin Lotus Hotel, has a jatukam in the lobby. And you can find it, this is one, it's a very strange one. I'm very interested in this one, I'll say a little bit about it, which is found in a restaurant in Nakhon called Kruutale. Good restaurant, good seafood. I recommend it. No commission. I've been investigating the pedigree of the jatukam amulet. There's quite a lot written about the jatukam name, but not much about the origins of its iconography. Where does it come from? What are its ancestors? It's quite an amazing image because in English we say it morphs, M-O-R-P-H-S. It changes, it transforms, it becomes many different shapes and sizes. Its iconography changes a lot. It is not a Buddha image, although it sometimes looks like a Buddha image, or has some of the iconography of the Buddha image. Some people say it is cat. Other people say that over time the image becomes more Buddhist. Whatever the case, it is improvised, composed of many bits and pieces mixed together to make it a unique object, and its pedigree is discontinuous. Here is a votive tablet from Drang of a Buddhist deity called Tao Chumpon, the god of wealth. And don't forget, the jatukam was used to make people wealthy, buying and selling it. The pose of this particular deity, which is called Tao Chumpon, is what art historians call the royal ease, Rachalila. Considering how the jatukam fueled inflation of the investment bubble, I'd like to think that this Tao Chumpon deity is a distant ancestor of the jatukam. And I discussed this with Ajahn Piriya Grairug the other day, and he said, yes, of course. Yes, of course, this is one of the sources of the iconography of the jatukam. There is an image of the Buddha very similar to the jatukam, in which the Buddha sits on the coils of the naga. And the many heads of the naga rise up over the Buddha, thus recalling the protection given to the Buddha, the source of all protection, by the Naga king, Mukkulinganan. From Chiang Mai in southern Thailand is the Buddha of Grahi, as an example of this kind of Buddha image protected by the Naga king. The art historians call this Buddha image the Naga-protected Buddha, or sometimes the enthroned Buddha. The Thai term is Nakpro. Nakpro. The jatukam on the naga is something else. It's not an image of the Buddha. Very large images of the jatukam deity turn up in many places, like this one in front of the Krabi Municipal Town Hall. Rop is an old Khmer word from the 11th century, where it means to roof, a roof over a head, or to shelter. It has only 2 or 3 usages in Thai. This one, Nakro, and another, which is relevant to the jatukam image. Kanakro refers to a group of monks meditating in a ritual that animates an image of the Buddha by opening its eyes. So here's another blah word, bro. The Kanakro presiding at these rituals chant parit prakparit verses to bring the Buddha image to life. The ritual is called plukse, and it transforms the lump of matter, the pong, of the amulet into something auspicious, watu mongkon. In English, we can say that the plukse ritual changes the amulet. The word that I like, the plukse ritual charges the amulet. Charges the amulet. The word I like because it's like charging a battery. The plukse ritual can be performed again and again if the charge wears off. The sounds in the chants, not the meaning of the words, transform the lump of matter into the watu mongkon by affirming the Buddha's virtue and loving kindness, metta. The Buddha's superior virtue makes him a heroic figure. So there's some other bywords that are associated with rope. Amulets like Prakrun, the Jatukam, and Dakrut have powers that protect beings